Hello everyone, this is a painting of abundance that I did in acrylic paints. I'll be explaining to you everything how I went about it in a slide form. I'll be explaining every stage in each of the slides, so do stay with me till the end so that I can explain it to you very well. To explain the basic concept of this painting in a nutshell, it's that of abundance, showing the various elements mankind desires for himself, including food, shelter, clothing, knowledge, wealth, blessings of all gods and goddesses of health, wisdom, wealth, and the blessings of all universal forces and powers like that of all the planetary forces, including the sun, the moon, and rest of the planets. In this initial stage, I marked out the composition of all the elements I wish to incorporate. For food, I included some fruits, some apples on a tilted wicker basket, some mangoes, grapes, and pineapple. Then, to indicate knowledge, I included a book. I have a small golden elephant called Gajanta Lakshmi and a silver vase symbolizing wealth. There is the god of wisdom, that is Lord Ganesh, god of medicine, that is Dhanvantari, to symbolize good health, and then there's Lord Shankar and goddess Parvati. Then we have the sun and moon, and all the other planetary forces will be included as a universe in the background. And oh, there's also a small house included to indicate shelter, and for clothing will be a lace cloth under the fruits draped over the basket. I'm including the names of the paints I'm using in the description below, but for now, initially after drawing out the outline of the whole composition with the help of a simple pencil, I simply ran over the same outline with the help of a brush with raw umber paint, and after the outline I'm now starting to block in the various elements with raw sienna, and I'm just blocking out all the elements with a little bit of shading so as to get a feel of how the things will look eventually. And so in this way I'm simply blocking out each of the elements with raw sienna, just as sort of an underpainting, so that the white of the paper is also clearly removed. I am basically using an oil paper here, and while doing this underpainting, the white of the paper goes away so that we also get a feel of things that we are going to paint eventually. At this stage, I thought of including some design on the vase, which is what I did. Once the underpainting for the whole of the paper was done, I have started work on the vase. This is a silver vase that I want to indicate, and that's why using paints like titanium white for the lighter side, a little bit of raw umber for the darker side, and I may add a few specks of lemon yellow in between to indicate the slight yellowish of the silver. Of course, while painting this, I'm taking into consideration the light source as always. In this case, the light source is obviously from the sun side, which is towards the top left corner, and so the left sides of each of the elements will be in light tones and the right sides will be in darker tones. Next to the vase is the Gajanta Lakshmi or the elephant, which is golden, and so I'm using lemon yellow, a little bit of yellow ochre, and raw umber to indicate the shadings of the same. Next, I'm working on the wicker basket with yellow ochre and some raw sienna, and I'll be continuing the same under the cloth that is draped over it because I want to indicate it as a transparent cloth. And then for the apples, I'm using lemon yellow, crimson red, and a combination of these both to make orange, and then a little bit of raw umber for the darker side. And then for the grapes, it is lemon yellow, Prussian blue, a combination of these two to make green, and a little dash of yellow ochre to have some variation. For the mangoes, it is largely lemon yellow, a tiny speck of crimson red added to it on the orange portions, and a tiny speck of green. And then for the pineapple, it is lemon yellow, yellow ochre, a little bit of raw sienna, and a little bit of raw umber. For the leaves of the pineapple, it is lemon yellow, Prussian blue, and a combination of this to make the greens. And I will be adding little portions of burnt umber or raw umber to take care of the darks. Next, I started with the background with Prussian blue and a little bit of titanium white and a little bit of raw umber. And for the gods, I have used titanium white and a little bit of raw umber. Now the figures of the gods I need to show as just sort of apparitions, and I'm not going to do them too much in detail. I'll be using mostly whites, and to indicate the darker side I'll use raw umber. I'm adding some variations in the background, which is the outer universe, outer space sort of, and so I'm using a combination of blues, different blues like Prussian blue, ultramarine blue, a little bit of crimson, and a combination of these to make purples, and a little dash of titanium white to make it light here and there. And I'm just dabbing the paints randomly with each of these shades to make it look more interesting and have some sort of a texture to it too. Now remember, this is just the very first layer that we are painting for each of the elements, and we will be adding more and more layers and adding more and more details subsequently. After working on the sky, I am now starting with the sun and the moon. For the sun, I am using lemon yellow, titanium white, and for the moon I am using titanium white and a little bit of raw umber to indicate the darker side. Next I'm working on the details on the vase, the carvings on the vase, and for that I'm using titanium white and raw umber mostly. Here the carvings on the vase, that is each of the elements within the carvings, will also be showing the shadings of lights and darks, and so each of the elements, that is the petals and flowers and leaves and all the intricate details, will individually be showing the lights and darks, and so that will also have to be indicated. Similarly, for the elephant figurine, which is supposed to be in gold, for that I'm using highlight as the titanium white, and shadings will include lemon yellow, a little bit of yellow ochre, and raw umber. Again, there are carvings on this figurine too, and so even that will have to be taken care of with the help of shadings of light and dark indicated with titanium white, yellow ochre, and raw umber again. Here I included the craters on the moon for a more authentic look. For that I used titanium white and raw umber to show the different craters. For the wicker basket here I used mostly yellow ochre and raw umber, and for the highlights I used titanium white. For the apples here the base was already worked in orange, and so I worked out more on crimson red and a little bit of vermilion and a bit of raw umber for the darker side, and of course titanium white for the highlights again. Here the depressions at the stalk areas of each of the apples will also have to be shown, and also each of the stalks will have to be shown, and I'm also including the shadows of each of these elements as and how I'm working on the main elements too. Next is the pineapple. Now this can be very intricate to paint after the carvings on the vase and also on the elephant figurine. For the pineapple, for the skin of the pineapple, each of the square portions on the skin of the pineapple will have individually the light and darker sides, for which I am using lemon yellow, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and raw umber. And the highlights of course again will be titanium white. And of course the leaves of the pineapple are also another intricate thing to paint. Here I am using lemon yellow, Prussian blue, a little bit of yellow ochre, and a mixture of all these to make the greens. And the peripheral leaves I am not really painting them in too much of details. I am just trying to merge them into the background so as to have a softer look for that. Then for the mangoes it's mostly lemon yellow, a little bit of orange, a little bit of tiny speck of green, and for the darker sides of course addition of a little tiny speck of raw umber again. The mangoes will have a slight shading portion of orange here and there, and a little slight portion of green here and there, a very slight small speck of green here and there, so as to make it look more authentic. And then I painted the base of the elephant figurine, which is a sort of a block which is covered with fabric. I chose the purple color for this to indicate a rich royal feel. And then for the base of the vase I chose orange. Next I worked on the book, and for this I added some scriptures over it to indicate the writings in the book. Next I worked on the figures of the gods and goddesses, for which I used mostly white itself and to indicate the darker sides, a little bit of raw umber. These figures, like I said before, like I mentioned before, I wanted to indicate only as sort of apparitions, and so I did not do any details on it. Now for the clothing part, out of the food, shelter and clothing bit, I decided to have a lace fabric to indicate the clothing bit, so as to give it a sort of a rich feel. And the lace was painted in white mostly, and the intricate design was painted. It does seem very intricate, but actually once you start painting it, it is quite easy and not so overwhelming at all. Of course, since the lace is a transparent material, we will have to take care that the undersides of the lace will be showing through, and so the wicker basket, the color of the wicker basket is showing through the lace where the fabric is placed over it, and the same fabric runs under the apples and is coming out from the front, and therefore it is now covering the base of where the fruits are, which is a darker bluish brownish sort of a surface, and so that under surface is showing through the lace. And so that's how the painting was done. I hope you liked the video. If you liked it, do give it a like, subscribe to the channel, don't forget to press the bell icon to get future notifications, and do leave your comments. Also click on the end screens indicated above to watch more such videos. See you in the next video then.